Well, the heavy persecution comes from the dogmatic, the ones that feel certain in their heart that they're right. And at the same time have a notion that they should change the world to what they think is right, which is not quite the same as rescuing people. If I rescue you, I bring you into, well, what you feel is what you want and is right. And you're happy then because you've got whatever it is you felt you needed. But if I'm dogmatic in what I believe is actually right and the right way to live, then I'm happy when I've persuaded you to do this. But in some sense you're being changed against your will. So with the child, ideally you let them grow up and you protect them from things that would harm them, and they become familiar with and gravitate towards the good. But in dogmatism and conformity and orthodoxy, we try and persuade you to go a certain way. We tell you that your natural inclination is wrong, and make you doubt everything that's not orthodox, if you like, or my way of thinking is the right way to live. That is persecution. You know, the extreme form of persecution is to force you with everything I've got to conform, whether you want to or not. So at one end of persecution, the secular, they pass you by because you're not appropriate to what they value. You're not high on the popularity list. At the other extreme, it's the Inquisition, which of course is carried out by the religious. And they are concerned to monopolize the mind into a state in which you are willing to live according to their way. Now, of course, you can get the same sort of thing from a secular dictator who's really bent on the population living the way he wants them to live, which serves probably his feeling of importance and his power and his opulence is the word in the back of my mind. He wants the prosperity for himself at your cost. So that is a great imposition, and you get hurt in him achieving this. You may be made a slave, a mere pawn in the game, cannon fodder or whatever. That's not imposing in the way that secularity more generally does, which simply is looking for that which supports itself, rewards you where you bring forth the goods, and passes you by where you don't. Just ignores you. You're a non-entity. But on the religious front, a dogmatic religiosity of conviction of that which is right and wrong, when that collides with your hopes and intentions, then the pressure's on, and the persecution is what we would call persecution in a spiritual religious sense, and as we know, can be very violent, just as much as the secular, self-interested dictator, autocrat. And the persecution may go on for hundreds of years against certain groups of people that follow a belief system contrary to what is held to be orthodox by those that have power. And that's very much what we seem to term as persecution in the religious sense. And it's abominable, of course, because it's done in some sort of awareness of God, but a very unloving pursuit of godliness, which you might well feel is not godly at all. It's demonic. It's following God, a very unenlightened view of God that is in fact very destructive of life, not loving and caring for life at all. Well, this is all pretty obvious really, isn't it? But it's suffice to say, in the world you'll have tribulation, and from religion you will get persecution. Nothing new here, is there? Well, Jesus avoids such until he wants confrontation. That seems in the simplicity of the story to be associated with when he's decided he's done enough and he's leaving. And the story becomes a demonstration of the true nature of both secularity, the state, in the form of the Roman side of things, the governors of the country, and an illustration too of the evil of religion in its willingness to kill if necessary, to achieve a conformity that it holds to be of value. Whereas Jesus' approach to rescuing people, which in itself seems to be different to both secularity and religion in this regard, is of being loving. And love allows and helps and guides, perhaps even, although Jesus says, call no man teacher, because you need the purity of God's guidance, which is not just power and authority, of course, and justice even, but in particular love and kindness and life. Goodness in this sense, quite simply blessing, as opposed to leadership and authority, power and imposition. So one can have a very misguided view of God, which results in the persecution of those that don't agree with you. That seems to be it. Thank you, Heavenly Dad.